Welcome to Moffat on Money. I'm Clay Moffat, and today we're having just a little quick hit to answer a couple questions that have popped up from some of the viewers. And Ellen, got to give her a prop. She comes up with some good questions. But we've had a number of people watching and interested in the Murdaugh trial. And during the discussions the other day, the chief accountant kept referring to something called a structured annuity. So, what's a structured annuity? Well, let me start off with an annuity. And actually, let me start off with just asking you, if you will, to hit the like and subscribe buttons down there. That kind of keeps us going. Tells YouTube to show us the Quan. I am, after all, an ambassador of Quan. But annuities. What's an annuity? An annuity is just a stream of payments, a series of cash flows. For example, you may have a choice between taking $1,000 now or $100 a year for the next 15 years. Which one would you prefer? Well, you've got a choice between a lump sum, the $1,000 today, or an annuity, $100 for 15 years. Now, when we talk about annuities today, we're generally talking about an insurance product, and there are several different subtypes that fall under the broad category of annuities. First one would be, and the most common is probably a fixed rate annuity. It pays a fixed rate of interest for the life of the annuity. Generally, the average rate right now is about 5.5%. So you give the insurance company a lump sum, they guarantee you a series of cash flows compounded at 5% per year for however long the annuity lasts. It can be 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, whatever you pick. There's also a second type of annuity known as a variable annuity that invests generally in the market, stock market. Structured annuities fall under this category. Now, the thing about the annuity in general being an insurance product is oftentimes they have life insurance attached to it. So if you die, there's a death benefit. If you're in a fixed annuity, the rate is guaranteed. If you're in a variable annuity, the rate is not guaranteed. Now, they oftentimes will still give you some guarantee on your principal, but investing in a variable rate annuity or a structured annuity through an insurance company has a cost. They have very high fees generally, and they generally only give you a portion of the actual return earned in the market. Let's say on average 60%. So if the market does 10%, they will pay you 6% on your annuity. So they take a pretty hefty cut in exchange for whatever guarantees or insurance they're offering you. Now, most people think insurance companies are safe, and it's good to have guarantees in some ways. But one thing you've got to understand, anytime you invest or put your money in an annuity, the stock market, the bank, CD, whatever you're using, keep in mind that risk and return are always commensurate. Always, always, always commensurate. You've always got risk. Now, you may think, but they're guaranteeing my principal. What's my risk? Well, let me tell you my first experience with an annuity. I was a portfolio manager in structuring Reg D offerings, private placements, and got a call from a priest. He said, I know you don't normally, do this kind of thing, but I've told you you'll do some, pro bono cases, and got a little lady in my parish that is about to retire. She's getting some money and she just doesn't know what to do with it. And I thought, maybe you could help her. So I said, sure. I don't know if I can help her, but I'll be glad to try. Send her over. So a couple of days later, this little old redheaded lady walked in my office, and she just had her hair done. She was so proud of it. She was the sweetest thing. And, my first memory is, oh my God, this stinks. She had just had it permed. I don't know if you've ever been around, somebody having hair perm, but the smell used to be pretty rough, at least on my delicate senses. So anyway, we sat down, had an interesting conversation. She was a delightful person. She told me her story. Back in the mid 50s, her husband, she was a young bride. Her husband went off to the Korean War and was killed. Well, the Department of Defense gave her a $10,000 death benefit. And you may say $10,000, that's not much. But back then, keep in mind, that $10,000 would buy 3 houses, three bedroom, 1.5 bath houses, kind of average houses for the day. So it wasn't an insignificant amount. Well, after the funeral, one of her neighbors was an insurance agent. He came up to her and he said, Polly, I know you to be young and, a very conservative woman, concerned about, protecting your money, your investments. And if you want to, I'd be glad to help you. I think I've got something that could help you do that. And so she trusted the guy, said, fine, and met with him. And he put her in an annuity, a fixed rate annuity for 30 years. Guaranteeing her principal. And she was excited because she was fairly conservative. Now, she was sitting in my office about to get the payout from this 30-year annuity. She was retiring. She had worked for a law firm, father, son, small little law firm, but she loved them, had a great time with them, but she literally spent 30 years, typing and being their secretary. And they didn't have a retirement plan. So she was retiring. She was 65. She was retiring, and she was entitled to a $232 a month Social Security benefit, plus this money she had coming from the annuity. And I started looking at the annuity, and what she had bought back in the mid-50s was a 30-year fixed rate annuity at 1.25% per year. That's what they guaranteed her. That's what they paid her. So she was entitled to a lump sum payment of a little over $17,000. This was the mid-'80s. Can you buy 3 houses? Could you buy 3 houses with $17,000? Hell no, you couldn't even make a down payment on one. What they had done basically is guarantee her principal, but guarantee her a lower lifestyle in the future, because they had ignored the risk, the purchasing power risk, the risk of inflation, that your money in the future will not purchase the same amount of goods and services that it does today. So here she was asking me how to retire off $232 a month and $17,000. Well, she had 2 loves in this life. She loved having her hair done, and she had a little puppy, a poodle, that she just adored, absolutely adored. Those were her 2 main loves in life. She had never remarried, never had, any kids, no other family surviving. It was just her and her puppy. Well, I'm the guy who got to tell her that she couldn't afford either of her 2 loves because she couldn't afford her rent, her food, her utilities, whatever. Now, long story short, was able to work with the priest and some members in her parish to where she got to keep her apartment, keep her puppy, have her hair done once a month. And she lived another 11 years, happy. She was a simple, beautiful woman, beautiful spirit. And, she got everything that she really wanted or needed. So, but the thing is, she should have never been in that position. What if now, this 30-year period that her annuity covered included 2 of the greatest bull markets in the history of the U.S. A blind pig in a poke could have averaged 15% per year. The stock market average over 75 years is 12.5%. Most any 75-year period. But she, this was during 2 great bull markets. If she had just invested in an average fund, mutual fund during this time, got 15% per year, instead of $17,000, she would have had over $660,000. And this is the mid-'80s. If she had invested in a pretty good mutual fund, she would have had over at just 3% more per year, 18% per year. She would have had over $1.2 million. You think she could buy 3 houses in mid-'80s for $1.2 million? What do you think the insurance company does with the money this whole time? Let me show you a graph. Let me show you a picture. If you invested $1 back in 1926, you have different asset categories. You could invest in small cap stocks, small company stocks. You can invest in large global companies. You can invest in long-term government bonds. You can invest in treasury bills, which are probably the most conservative. And then here's the rate of inflation. Well, a dollar in 1926 through I think this is through 2017, a dollar back then would be, you would need $13 to buy the same goods and services in 2017. Treasury bills, if you'd invested in treasury bills this whole time, you would have $21. Now, if you invested in longer term government bonds, you'd have 135. Okay, stocks. If you got the large, global, well-known companies, that dollar would have turned into $5,300. If you invested in small cap companies, smaller, regional, faster growing companies, you would have nearly $17,000 out of that $1. Now, people talk about risk. Oh, the market fluctuates and goes down. Well, if you look at this literally decade by decade, or pick most any 10-year period you want, it's hard to find 10 years where you lose money. And I'm not sure of the exact year here. I think it's 27, 28 through 38. There is a small gain. And that's probably about the worst performance you got. Suppose you invested here in 29 or 30. The point is, over most any 10 or 15-year period, you can't find an era when you lost money in the stock market. Now, is it possible to buy it, here in 28 and then sell it here? Sure. If you're looking at a year or two, 5 years, you maybe want to be more conservative. But if you're looking at 10, 15, 20, or 30 years, you can't find me a 30-year period where you wouldn't be far ahead of a fixed rate return in an annuity. The insurance company knows this. And what do you think they're doing with the money? Now, the structured annuity products, will quote unquote invest in the market, but they take a haircut, pretty strong haircut. You'll get only a portion of the return, somewhere around 60% of the return. So if the stock market does 10% that year, you get 6%. So it's a pretty strong haircut for the annuity, for the insurance company, and for whatever life insurance you're buying. There's just cheaper ways to do it. If you're looking at a 10, 15, 20, 30-year horizon, it's hard to argue you wouldn't be far better off putting your money in a small cap index or an index fund like the S&P 500 and just buying whatever life insurance, term insurance you needed to cover temporary risk. You'll be far better off. That is a smaller risk to me than somebody guaranteeing your principal. And I'll be glad to make that argument in more detail if somebody's curious. So, little old redheaded lady, love that woman. And it makes me angry when I think what happened to her. I'm not saying that there's absolutely no cases where you wouldn't prefer an annuity. You might. I'm not sitting here saying they're good, bad, whatever on a moral level. I'm just looking at the actual returns and the results people have to experience. That's all I care about. You may want an annuity. The only thing I want is you to understand your choices, what the risk is, what the rewards are, what you're giving up, what you're paying, etc. As long as you're making an informed decision, that's all I care about. So I'm not necessarily trying to bias you for or against anything. I'm just talking practical realities in this world. Now, I already talked about the structured annuity, how they may let you invest in the S&P 500 or an international fund or real estate, but then they take a pretty strong cut. You only get a percentage of that annual return. So that's what the structured annuity is. I also had questions on 457 plans. So a 457 plan is basically a non-qualified deferred compensation plan. You take a portion of your salary and put it in this retirement plan. Now, 457 plans are only available to state or government employees, not available to private employees, but they're pretty much the same animal as a 401k or 403 plan. But there's generally no matching with the 457. That's kind of one of the big differences. Another big difference is that the IRS won't penalize you if you take it out before 59 and a half, as long as you retire or quit working for the company you're working for. If you try to do it to a 401k, if you try to retire at 59 and start withdrawing from the 401k, you'll have to pay an additional 10% penalty in addition to the income tax that's owed. Now, 457 plans also are traditional or Roth. Remember, a traditional, from our prior conversations, traditional plan is where you invest the money or have some of your salary withheld, and you're not taxed on that amount. You get a tax deduction basically for the amount of your investment. And a 457 will let you put in up to $22,500 this year, 2023. The Roth when you take that money out, however, you will be taxed on it. Just regular income tax, just like salary. The Roth version, you don't get the upfront deduction. But years later, when you pull that money out, it comes out tax-free. So that might be a pretty significant advantage if you can afford the taxes now. The 457 plans can be rolled over into an IRA, at some time in the future. That may give you a little bit more investment flexibility, because the 457 plans are generally controlled by your employer. They give you whatever investment options they want, but you can roll them over into IRAs in the future. So that'll give you more flexibility in that regard. So that's really the nutshell of the 457. Has some advantages. You can also catch up. I think it's 3 or 4 years before retirement. You can add as much as $45,000 this year. There's some other provisions that allow you to add incremental amounts. You can add $22,000 in your regular retirement plan and another $22,000 in your 457 plan. So there are ways to maximize that contribution if you're about to retire or going to retire in 5 or 10 years and can do without some of the salary. So I hope that answers your question. If you have any more, let me know. Feel free to DM me on Twitter or pop a question down in the comments. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. That helps YouTube, give us more of their little advertising. And tell your friends, family, mention us in your will. If you have any other questions, let me know. Thank you. I appreciate your time.